The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy that spans stars and civilizations. For eons, it has been the fundamental constant of existence. Light and dark, life and death, all woven into its eternal tapestry. But the Force is not the only power in the cosmos. Beyond the edges of known space, beyond the fabric of a single reality, there exist other universes with their own immutable laws. And when two such realities collide, even the Force itself trembles. The rift began as a whisper, a distortion in the quantum foam of space-time that neither Jedi nor Sith could sense through their connection to the Force. In the Marvel Universe, Doctor Stephen Strange felt it first. A wrongness in the fundamental structure of reality, like a discordant note in an otherwise perfect symphony. He stood in the sanctum sanctorum, hands trembling as mystical energy crackled around his fingers, staring at readings that should have been impossible. The barriers between universes, already weakened by Thanos' use of the Infinity Stones, were collapsing. "Wong!" Strange's voice carried an edge of panic he rarely allowed himself. "We have a Category Omega dimensional breach. Multiple realities are—" The explosion of light cut him off. Not an explosion in the conventional sense, but rather the violent merging of two fundamental forces that had never been meant to coexist. The Infinity Stones' residual energy, still scarred across the quantum substrate from their use and subsequent destruction, had found a crack in the multiverse. And through that crack, it touched something equally powerful, the living force of an entire galaxy far, far away. In the Star Wars galaxy, the effect was catastrophic and immediate. Hyperspace lanes fractured like shattering glass. Ships mid-jump found themselves torn between dimensions, their Navi computers screaming warnings about impossible spatial coordinates. On Coruscant, 1,000 Jedi who had survived Order 66 in hiding suddenly gasped as the Force itself seemed to scream in agony. The disturbance rippled outward from a single point in space, a tear in reality itself that glowed with energies that belonged to neither universe. Darth Vader felt it aboard his Star Destroyer, Executor, during a routine patrol of the Outer Rim. The Dark Lord of the Sith staggered, his mechanical breathing stuttering as the Force conveyed something his mind struggled to comprehend. Through the viewport, space itself was tearing open. Not a wormhole, not a hyperspace anomaly, something far more fundamental. Reality was breaking. "Lord Vader!" Captain Lennox's voice was tight with fear. "Sensors are detecting massive gravitational distortions. Energy readings are off all known scales. Whatever that is, it's growing." Vader's respirator hissed rhythmically as he extended his senses through the Force. What he encountered made even his iron will falter. Beyond the rift, he sensed other minds, other powers, not the Force, yet something that resonated with it like a dark echo. And behind those minds, he felt the presence of something vast and ancient. Power on a scale that rivaled even Emperor Palpatine's mastery of the dark side. "Prepare my shuttle," Vader commanded. "I will investigate this disturbance personally. Alert the Emperor that we may have encountered something beyond our current understanding of the Force." Meanwhile, in what remained of the Avengers compound after Thanos' attack, an alarm began wailing. Bruce Banner rushed to the main console, his eyes widening at the readings. "This can't be right. We're detecting quantum signatures consistent with another universe? No, multiple universes converging on our dimensional coordinates." "Banner!" The holographic projection of Rocket Raccoon appeared, transmitted from the Benatar somewhere in deep space. "We've got a problem. Space is doing something really weird out here. Quill says it looks like reality is tearing itself apart." "It is," Banner confirmed, his voice grim. "The damage from the snap created weak points in dimensional barriers. Something just exploited those weaknesses." Through the expanding rift, energies began to bleed between realities. On Earth, scattered SHIELD agents reported impossible sightings. Massive triangular ships appearing in the atmosphere, technology that defied known physics, and energy signatures that matched no known power source. In the Star Wars galaxy, Rebel Alliance monitoring stations picked up transmissions in languages their protocol droids couldn't decipher. detected ships that traveled without hyperspace drives, and recorded energy readings that the Force itself seemed to recoil from. Luke Skywalker, hidden on Dagobah with Master Yoda, stumbled backward as the Force surged with unprecedented chaos. "Master, what's happening? I've never felt anything like this." Yoda's ears drooped, his ancient eyes troubled. "A disturbance in the Force there is, young Skywalker. But more than that, it is. Touch something does, that the Force itself has never known. Two realities colliding they are, and when settled the dust has, changed forever both galaxies will be." The rift stabilized into a massive tear in space-time, visible from both universes. It hung like a wound in reality itself, a swirling maelstrom of conflicting energies where the Force and Infinity Stone power crashed against each other in violent harmony. Ships from both realities that ventured too close found their systems failing, their crews experiencing impossible visions of alternate timelines and parallel lives. And in that chaos, the first contact was about to be made. If you want to see more reality-shattering crossovers that push the boundaries of what's possible, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character or universe collision you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Doctor Strange stepped through a portal into the heart of the rift, his cloak of levitation billowing around him as mystical shields protected him from the dimensional turbulence. He needed to understand what was happening, to find a way to seal this breach before it consumed both realities. But as he emerged into the impossible space between universes, he found he was not alone. A figure materialized from the swirling chaos, tall, imposing, clad in black armor that reflected no light. The rhythmic, mechanical breathing echoed through the dimensional void. Darth Vader had arrived at the same conclusion. This rift needed to be investigated. And now, two of the most powerful beings from their respective realities stood face to face in the space between worlds. Strange's hands ignited with golden mystical energy. Vader's lightsaber activated with its characteristic snap hiss, bathing the void in crimson light. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. Both recognized in the other something fundamental: power, purpose, and the absolute certainty that this meeting would change everything. The collision of the Star Wars galaxy and the Marvel Multiverse had begun. The dimensional void between realities had no air, no gravity, no physical laws that either man recognized as constant. Yet both Strange and Vader stood as if on solid ground, their respective powers creating bubbles of stability in the chaos. The Sorcerer Supreme's mystical shields shimmered with golden mandalas of ancient design, while the Dark Lord of the Sith bent the Force itself around him, creating a pocket of breathable atmosphere within his presence. For a long moment, neither moved. Strange's analytical mind raced through possibilities, his enhanced perception cataloging every detail of this armored figure. The man, and it was a man, Strange could sense that much, radiated power unlike anything he'd encountered. Not magic, not cosmic energy, but something that felt almost alive, conscious, as if the very universe itself flowed through him. Vader, in turn, studied this strange sorcerer with growing curiosity. The Force whispered warnings about the golden energy crackling around the man's hands, but also conveyed something unexpected. This being wielded power that existed outside the Force entirely. Impossible. The Force bound all living things. Yet here stood proof that his understanding of the universe was incomplete. "I am Dr. Stephen Strange, Sorcerer Supreme of Earth, Guardian of the Dimensional Barriers." Strange's voice carried across the void through magical means. "This breach is catastrophic. If we don't seal it, both our realities will collapse into each other." Vader's respirator hissed its mechanical rhythm. When he spoke, his deep voice emerged through vocoder modulation, carrying dark authority. "I am Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith and servant of the Galactic Empire. Your Earth means nothing to me. Explain what has caused this disturbance, Sorcerer, or I will extract the information through other means." Strange's eyes narrowed. Telepathic aggression probed at his mental defenses. Not magic, but something else. Something that felt like it was trying to grasp his thoughts and twist them. His mystical training held firm against the intrusion, but the sensation was distinctly unpleasant. Threatening me won't stabilize reality. We need to work together. Together? Vader's hand extended, and Strange felt invisible force grip around his throat. Not physical hands, but telekinetic power of staggering intensity. You know nothing of power. Strange didn't panic. With a gesture, he split himself into multiple astral projections, each one circling Vader from different angles. And you know nothing of the mystic arts. The projections attacked simultaneously, blasting Vader with bolts of eldritch energy that struck his force barrier from all directions. Vader grunted, his concentration breaking as the strange energy penetrated his defenses. It didn't hurt, not exactly, but it felt wrong, as if reality itself was being rewritten around him. He released Strange and raised both hands, calling upon the full depth of the dark side. The dimensional void erupted with force lightning, black-tinged energy that crackled with barely contained fury. The lightning struck Strange's shields, and the Sorcerer Supreme gasped as he felt the raw hatred and suffering behind the attack. This wasn't just energy, it was weaponized emotion, channeled through some universal force he'd never encountered. His shields held, but barely. The golden mandalas flickered and cracked under the assault. Both men recognized the stalemate immediately. Neither could easily overcome the other, and more importantly, their battle was destabilizing the rift further. Cracks spiderwebbed through the dimensional fabric around them, each one threatening to expand into a full cascade failure. Strange lowered his hands first. This is pointless. Every second we fight, the breach grows. Look around you. We're destroying what we're both trying to protect. Vader deactivated his force lightning, though his hand remained raised, ready to strike. The sorcerer was right, though admitting it rankled. The Dark Lord had not survived this long by ignoring tactical reality. Speak then. What caused this breach? And why does your power feel like corruption upon the Force itself? The Force? Strange seized on the term. Is that what you call it? That energy I sensed around you? At Vader's curt nod, Strange continued, his mind already working through the implications. My universe recently experienced a catastrophic event. A being named Thanos acquired 6 Infinity Stones, artifacts of cosmic power that predate reality itself. He used them to eliminate half of all life, then destroyed the stones to prevent their use again. But that much power doesn't simply vanish. It leaves scars on the quantum foam of reality. Infinity Stones. Vader's vocabulary couldn't convey his skepticism, but his posture shifted slightly. Artifacts that predate reality? Your universe believes in such mysticism? Says the man who just shot lightning from his hands. Strange allowed himself a thin smile. The stones are real, and their destruction created weak points between dimensions. Your force, whatever it is, must have resonated with that damaged space-time. 2 fundamental universal constants touching across the dimensional barrier. The result is what you see here. Vader processed this information with cold efficiency. If this sorcerer spoke truth, then the Empire had stumbled upon something far more significant than a simple spatial anomaly. Another universe, other powers, other potential threats, or opportunities. The Emperor would want to know everything. If these Infinity Stones created this breach, Vader said slowly, then perhaps the Force can seal it, or exploit it. Exploit? Strange's tone hardened. This isn't an opportunity for conquest. If this rift continues expanding, it will create a cascade collapse. Both our universes will be pulled into a dimensional singularity and destroyed. Then you have incentive to cooperate with me fully. Vader's mechanical breathing filled the silence. Contact your leaders. I will contact mine. We will determine how to proceed with this situation. Before Strange could respond, space around them shuddered violently. Through the rift, massive shapes began to emerge from both sides. From the Star Wars side, Imperial Star Destroyers and TIE Fighter squadrons approached in perfect formation, their arrival heralded by the cold efficiency of military protocol. From the Marvel side, the few remaining SHIELD helicarriers and Wakandan Royal Talon fighters materialized, their advanced technology scanning the impossible dimensional tear. But worse, far worse, Strange sensed other presences approaching. Dark presences, From his universe, the scattered remnants of Thanos' army, the Black Order's survivors who had fled after their master's death, now drawn to the massive power signature of the Rift. And from Vader's side, the Emperor's personal fleet, bearing the malevolent consciousness of Darth Sidious himself. Your leaders and mine are already aware, Strange said grimly, watching the military buildup on both sides. This is about to become very complicated. Vader tilted his head slightly, his mask betraying no emotion. Indeed. Which is why, Sorcerer, you and I must establish terms before our respective superiors decide the matter for us. Neither of us wishes to see our reality destroyed, but neither will simply trust the other's good intentions. Agreed. Strange created a mystical platform in the void, a neutral ground where both could stand without their powers directly touching. We have minutes, perhaps, before shooting starts, so talk quickly. What is your empire? What are your capabilities? And most importantly, what do you want? Vader stepped onto the platform, his cape settling around his armored form. The Galactic Empire spans 1,000,000 worlds, bound by order and enforced peace. We possess weapons capable of destroying planets, fleets that number in the thousands, and armies beyond counting. What we want is simple: security and control. His respirator hissed. And you, Sorcerer? What does your fractured universe desire? Survival, Strange answered honestly. We just lost half our population to a madman's crusade. We're vulnerable, scattered, and desperate, but we're not helpless. And we won't submit to another tyrannical regime. He met Vader's masked gaze steadily. If your empire thinks it can simply conquer what's left of us, you'll find Earth far more dangerous than you imagine. The Dark Lord considered this. Vulnerability, desperation. These could be exploited, but the Sorcerer's power suggested his world held dangers beyond conventional military might. The Emperor would want intelligence before committing to any course of action. Then perhaps, Vader said carefully, we begin with information exchange, a temporary truce while we assess the threat to both our realities. Once we understand what we face, our respective leaders can negotiate terms. Strange knew a strategic delay when he heard one. This Vader was buying time for his empire to prepare for potential invasion or exploitation. But the same calculation worked in reverse. Earth needed time to mobilize what remained of its defenses and understand this new threat. 24 hours, Strange proposed. We each return to our realities, brief our leaders, and reconvene here with proposals for stabilizing the rift. No military action across the dimensional barrier during that time. Agreed? Vader's respirator hissed rhythmically as he weighed the offer. Finally, he nodded once. Agreed. 24 hours. But know this, Sorcerer. If your people attempt to cross into Imperial space during that time, it will be considered an act of war. Likewise, Strange replied coldly, Earth will defend itself. Both men turned and walked toward their respective realities, leaving the dimensional platform behind. As Strange stepped through a golden portal back to the Sanctum Sanctorum, he knew with absolute certainty that the 24-hour truce wouldn't hold. Too many factors, too many factions with their own agendas. The collision of two universes had begun, and it would be measured in far more than hours. The Sanctum Sanctorum materialized around Strange as he stepped through the portal. Wong already waiting with a tablet displaying real-time data from observatories worldwide. The rift is visible from Earth now, Wong reported without preamble. Every space agency on the planet is going into crisis mode. We're getting calls from what's left of S.H.I.E.L.D., the UN Security Council, and Wakanda. They all want answers. Strange moved to the window, gazing up at the night sky where a shimmering aurora of impossible colors marked the dimensional tier. Get me everyone. Avengers, Wakanda, masters of the mystic arts, even the Guardians if Rocket can reach them. We have maybe hours before this situation explodes. Across the dimensional barrier, Darth Vader strode onto the bridge of the Executor, his cape billowing behind him. Officers snapped to attention as he passed, their fear palpable in the Force. Captain Lennox approached cautiously. Lord Vader, the Emperor has been awaiting your report. He demands immediate contact. Then he shall have it. Vader entered the private communications chamber, kneeling before the holographic projection that flickered to life. Emperor Palpatine's hooded form materialized, his yellow eyes gleaming with dark curiosity. Lord Vader, you have investigated the disturbance? The Emperor's voice dripped with anticipation. Yes, my master. The anomaly is a breach between our reality and another universe entirely. I encountered a being there, a sorcerer who wields power outside the Force. He claims his reality suffered a catastrophic event involving artifacts of cosmic power, and the resulting damage opened this rift. Palpatine leaned forward, his interest sharpening. Power outside the Force? Impossible. The Force binds all things, encompasses all energy. I would have said the same, Master, yet I felt it. His power is real and it is different, foreign to the Force itself. Vader paused, knowing his next words would intrigue his master further. The sorcerer spoke of weapons that eliminated half the life in his universe. If such power exists beyond the Force, then we must possess it. Palpatine's grin was predatory, or destroy it before it threatens us. What else did you learn? Vader relayed the details of his encounter, omitting nothing. The Emperor listened in silence, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. When Vader finished, Palpatine was quiet for a long moment. You granted this sorcerer a truce, foolish perhaps, or strategic. The Emperor's tone was impossible to read. Very well, use these 24 hours to learn everything you can about this other reality, their weaknesses, their powers, their weapons. And Lord Vader, if this universe proves to be a threat, we will not hesitate to use the Death Star to seal the rift permanently, even if it means destroying everything near it in both realities. The hologram flickered out, leaving Vader alone with his thoughts. The Emperor's intentions were clear: assess, exploit, or eliminate. Standard Imperial doctrine. But something about the sorcerer's power troubled Vader. The Force had always been absolute, the ultimate power in the universe. Yet Strange's mystical energy had resisted Force manipulation entirely. What other surprises might this new universe hold? On Earth, the emergency meeting convened in the Wakandan Palace, one of the few facilities with sufficient security and technology to host such a gathering. King T'Challa stood at the head of the conference table, his panther suit deactivated, but his posture radiating controlled authority. Around the table sat the remaining key figures: Bruce Banner via hologram from the Avengers compound, Rocket and Nebula transmitting from the Benatar, Shuri with her technical readouts, Wong representing the mystic arts, and surprisingly, Nick Fury, who had returned from his off-world activities the moment the rift appeared. Let me get this straight, Fury said, his one good eye fixed on Strange. We've got a hole in reality that connects to another universe, a universe with evil space wizards, planet-killing weapons, and an empire that makes Hydra look like a neighborhood watch. Does that about sum it up? Succinctly, yes. Strange stood before a holographic display showing the rift's structure. Darth Vader, the man I encountered, represents something called the Galactic Empire. From what I could sense, we're dealing with a civilization that spans a significant portion of their galaxy. Military strength on a scale we've never faced. And this Force thing? Banner asked. His brow furrowed. You said it's different from anything we know? Completely. Strange manipulated the hologram, highlighting energy readings. It's not cosmic power like the Infinity Stones, not magical energy like the mystic arts. It's more fundamental, biological. I sensed it connecting to Vader's very life force, and through him to something larger, a universal constant in their reality. Shuri leaned forward, studying the data. If it's biological, there must be a mechanism. Genetic, perhaps? Something in their physiology that allows manipulation of this force? Her fingers flew across her interface. These energy readings show patterns similar to quantum entanglement, but on a massive scale, as if every particle in their universe is connected. Great, Rocket muttered. So we're dealing with space wizards who are literally connected to everything. That's not terrifying at all. T'Challa raised a hand for silence. Doctor Strange, you negotiated a 24-hour truce. What happens when that time expires? Best case? We establish diplomatic relations and work together to stabilize the rift. Strange's expression was grim. Worst case? We're looking at interdimensional war with a militaristic empire that has no reason to trust us and every reason to see us as a threat or an opportunity for conquest. Then we prepare for worst case, Fury said flatly. Wakanda, what's our defensive status? Our energy shields can be adapted to repel this force energy, Shuri reported, pulling up schematics. But that's defensive only. If their planet-killing weapon is real, no shield will matter. We'd need offensive capabilities. Nebula's holographic image spoke for the first time, her cybernetic voice cold and analytical. Thanos conquered hundreds of worlds with conventional weapons. If this empire has planet destroyers, they're far more dangerous than he was, and they haven't been weakened by the snap. We're not ready for this fight. We're never ready, Banner said softly. But we fight anyway. That's what we do. Fighting might not be necessary. Strange gestured, creating mystical images of Vader. I sense conflict in him. He serves this empire, but there's something beneath the armor. Pain, rage, but also doubt. If we can find leverage, we might negotiate rather than fight. Fury snorted. You want to negotiate with Darth Vader? The guy who tried to force choke you 5 minutes after meeting you? I want to avoid a war we can't win, Strange shot back. Look at us. We're still recovering from the snap. Half our population is gone. The Avengers are scattered. We're vulnerable. If this empire decides to invade, we lose. Simple as that. The room fell silent as the reality of their situation sank in. T'Challa broke the quiet, his voice measured. Then we must appear strong while we buy time. Doctor Strange, you will return to the Rift for negotiations, but you will not go alone. I will accompany you, representing Earth's leadership. Shuri, prepare a demonstration of Wakandan technology, something impressive but not threatening. We need them to see us as potential allies, not easy prey. And if negotiation fails? Wong asked. Then we fight, T'Challa replied simply. But we fight intelligently. Wakanda has never fallen to conquest. We will not start now. Strange nodded approval. T'Challa understood the precarious balance they needed to maintain. But even as plans were laid, Strange's mystical senses tingled with warning. Something was wrong. The Rift's energy signature was changing, fluctuating in ways that suggested. His eyes widened. They're coming through. Someone's crossing the dimensional barrier. The holographic displays erupted with alerts, multiple contacts emerging from the Rift, but not from the Star Wars side. From Earth's side, scattered energy signatures that Strange recognized with growing horror. Thanos' ship, the Sanctuary 2, had been badly damaged during the final battle but not completely destroyed. Its remnants, along with surviving members of the Black Order, had apparently detected the massive power surge from the Rift, and they were making their move. They're heading for the Imperial fleet, Banner reported, watching the trajectory. The Black Order is attacking Vader's ships. Idiots, Nebula hissed. They'll provoke a war. Or, Fury said darkly, they'll give the Empire a very clear first impression of what our universe has to offer. And it won't be diplomacy. Strange was already opening a portal. I have to stop this. If Vader thinks we're launching an attack, too late. Shuri's screen showed the Imperial Star Destroyers opening fire, their turbo laser batteries unleashing devastation on the attacking Sanctuary 2 remnants. The sheer firepower was staggering. Each blast contained more energy than most Earth weapons could generate. Within seconds, the Black Order's ships were vaporized. But the damage was done. The truce had lasted less than 3 hours. Strange stepped through his portal into the dimensional void, finding Vader already there, his lightsaber ignited and his presence radiating dark fury. You said 24 hours, sorcerer. Your word is worthless. That wasn't us, Strange shouted over the chaos. Those were remnants of the force that attacked our world. We didn't send them. Your explanations mean nothing. Vader raised his hand, and through the rift, more Imperial ships began emerging. Dozens of Star Destroyers, their triangular hulls bristling with weapons. You have proven yourselves treacherous. The Emperor was wise to doubt your intentions. Your universe will be quarantined. Any ship attempting to cross will be destroyed. Strange felt the situation spiraling out of control. Behind him, he sensed T'Challa and Wong preparing to join him. Wakandan ships mobilizing. Behind Vader, an entire Imperial fleet arrayed for war, and between them, the rift pulsed with unstable energy, growing larger with each passing moment. This was how wars started, not with grand declarations, but with misunderstandings and fear and pride. "Vader, wait," Strange pleaded. "Give me a chance to—" The Force lightning caught him mid-sentence, blasting through his shields. Strange screamed as darkside energy coursed through him, feeling the raw hatred behind the attack. Through the pain, he saw Vader advancing, every line of his armored body radiating lethal intent. The collision of universes had just become a war. T'Challa burst through Strange's portal in full Black Panther regalia, kinetic energy already crackling across his vibranium suit. He didn't hesitate. The moment he saw Vader's lightning tearing into Strange, he leaped, claws extended. The King of Wakanda struck with precision honed through years of combat, his vibranium claws raking across Vader's armor in a shower of sparks. The Dark Lord staggered, more from surprise than damage. His Force lightning cut off as he spun to face this new attacker, lightsaber sweeping in a deadly arc. T'Challa's enhanced reflexes saved him. He twisted midair, the crimson blade missing by inches. He landed in a crouch, his suit's kinetic energy absorption glowing with purple light from the impact. "Your fight is not with him," T'Challa said, his voice amplified by the suit's systems. "Those ships that attacked you were not under our command. They were criminals, remnants of the monster who nearly destroyed our world." Vader's respirator hissed as he assessed this new combatant. The armor was unlike anything in Imperial design, and the energy signature was strange. Not force-based, but something that absorbed kinetic impact and redirected it. Fascinating and dangerous. "More lies," Vader growled, but he didn't immediately attack. His tactical mind calculated odds. Two opponents, both wielding powers he didn't fully understand, in an unstable dimensional void. Meanwhile, his fleet needed orders. "Captain Lennox, status report." Through his comlink, Lennox's voice crackled with urgency. "Lord Vader, we've destroyed the attacking vessels, but we're detecting massive energy buildups from the other reality. Multiple spacecraft approaching the rift, and something else. Energy readings consistent with the sorcerer's power, but multiplied across dozens of locations." The masters of the mystic arts were mobilizing. Strange had called in reinforcements. Strange struggled to his feet, smoke rising from his scorched robes. His hands trembled as he reformed his mystical shields, the dark side energy still burning through his nervous system. "Vader, stop. This is exactly what we can't afford." But the situation was already cascading beyond any single person's control. Through the rift, Wakandan Royal Talon fighters emerged, their advanced cloaking technology flickering in the dimensional turbulence. Behind them came something that made even Vader pause. A massive spacecraft unlike any in the Imperial database. The Benatar, with Rocket at the helm and Nebula manning weapons, had arrived. "Strange!" Rocket's voice crackled over comms. "We've got a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up something big coming from their side. And I mean big. Moon-size big." Vader felt it through the Force at the same moment. The Emperor's ultimate weapon was approaching. The Death Star was being deployed. "Emperor Palpatine has lost patience with diplomacy," Vader stated coldly. "He has authorized the Death Star to seal the rift by destroying everything within a 1 light-year radius on both sides. You have minutes to evacuate your forces, or they will be annihilated." T'Challa's eyes widened behind his mask. "You would destroy your own ships? Your own people?" "The Empire does not negotiate with terrorists or liars. Acceptable losses in service of security." Vader's tone was utterly devoid of emotion. "Leave now, or die with the dishonor you have earned." Strange's mind raced. The Death Star, a planet killer being brought to bear against Earth's solar system. He'd sensed no deception from Vader. The Dark Lord genuinely believed Earth had attacked first, and now his Emperor was responding with overwhelming force. They had minutes to change the equation or watch billions die on both sides. "Wong," Strange shouted through mystical channels. "I need every master of the mystic arts at the rift now. We're going to have to do something desperate." But before Wong could respond, Space around them erupted with new arrivals, not from either universe, but from within the rift itself. The dimensional tear was destabilizing, collapsing under the strain of so much military hardware and conflicting energies. And through the collapsing barriers, something else began to emerge. They were creatures of pure chaos, dimensional parasites that fed on the breakdown of universal constants. In the Marvel Universe, they were known as the Mindless Ones, extra-dimensional entities that consumed reality itself. In the Star Wars galaxy, ancient Jedi texts spoke of them as the Nameless, beings from hyperspace that devoured Force sensitives. Both universes had their own names for the same fundamental threat. And now, with two realities grinding against each other, the barriers that held them at bay were breaking. Dozens of the creatures poured through, their eyeless faces turned toward the densest concentrations of power. Vader, Strange, the Imperial fleet, the Wakandan ships. They moved with terrible purpose, their touch dissolving matter and energy alike, leaving nothing but void in their wake. "Oh, that's just perfect," Rocket snarled, banking the Benatar hard as one of the creatures reached for them. "We've got universe-eating space demons now." Vader's tactical assessment shifted instantly. Enemy fleet, diplomatic incident, potential execution, all irrelevant. The Nameless were an existential threat. Every Force sensitive in the galaxy knew the ancient warnings. When the Nameless emerged, all other conflicts ceased. You fought them, or you ceased to exist. "Sorcerer!" Vader's voice cut through the chaos. "These creatures, your universe knows them?" Strange blasted one of the Mindless Ones with eldritch energy, watching in horror as it absorbed the attack and grew larger. "Yes, they feed on dimensional instability. Every second this rift stays open, more will come. Then we have common cause." Vader's lightsaber carved through a nameless creature, the blade actually harming it where physical weapons failed. "We must close the rift. Immediately." T'Challa landed beside them, his claws shredding another creature. "Agreed, but how? Our forces are ready to kill each other." "Then you will order yours to stand down, and I will order mine." Vader's respirator hissed. "The alternative is extinction for both our realities." Strange knew a pivotal moment when he saw one. Everything hung on this decision. Trust the Dark Lord's word, or assume it was a trap and watch reality collapse around them. He thought of Tony Stark, of the impossible gamble that had saved the universe from Thanos. Sometimes you had to take the leap. "Wong, relay to all forces, immediate ceasefire. Concentrate all fire on the dimensional parasites." Strange turned to Vader. "Call off the Death Star. We need to combine our powers to seal this rift, not blow up everything around it." Vader was silent for a heartbeat, then two. Finally, he spoke into his comlink. "Captain Lennox, relay to the Death Star. Hold fire. New priority targets, the extra-dimensional entities. All ships are to engage immediately." The effect was instantaneous. Turbo laser batteries that had been tracking Wakandan ships pivoted to target the Nameless instead. Green energy bolts lanced through space, each hit vaporizing one of the creatures. The Imperial fleet's firepower was devastating. Whatever else could be said about the Empire, they knew how to wage war. From Earth's side, the Wakandan ships joined the barrage. Their sonic cannons and vibranium-tipped weapons proved effective against the creatures, disrupting their dimensional cohesion. The Benatar's quantum missile launchers, technology salvaged from the Sovereign, tore through multiple entities with each shot. But for every creature destroyed, two more emerged from the rift. The dimensional barrier was collapsing faster now, unable to sustain the conflicting energies of two universal constants grinding against each other. Strange could feel it. They had minutes before the cascade failure reached the point of no return. "We need to stabilize the dimensional fabric," Strange said urgently. "Your force and my mystic arts, if we work together—" "The force does not work with other powers," Vader interrupted. "It dominates or it destroys." "Then we're all dead." Strange grabbed Vader's armored shoulder, forcing the Dark Lord to face him. "Your pride or mine doesn't matter. If we don't try, both our universes collapse into dimensional chaos. Is that what your empire wants? Is that what you want?" Through his connection to the dark side, Vader felt the truth of Strange's words. The Force itself was screaming warnings, showing him visions of reality unraveling, of the galaxy consumed by the void. He had served the Emperor for years, had committed atrocities in the name of order and security. But this was something beyond Palpatine's ambitions. This was survival itself. "What do you need from me?" Vader asked quietly. Strange allowed himself a moment of relief. "The Force connects everything in your reality, yes? It's a binding energy. I need you to hold the dimensional barrier stable on your side while I reinforce it from mine. We create a cage of energy around the rift, your Force and my mystical shields, and compress it until the rift seals. That will require sustaining maximum power for an extended period. Through the dark side, I can maintain such focus. Can you? I held back an ocean of dark energy for hours once. I can handle this." Strange was already beginning the spell, golden mandalas forming around his hands. "But we need to synchronize. Our powers can't fight each other, or the rift will only grow." T'Challa watched the exchange with careful attention. "What do you need from the rest of us?" "Keep those things away from us," Strange said. "Once we start, we can't break concentration. If those parasites reach us while we're channeling, they won't." T'Challa activated his comlink. "All Wakandan forces form a defensive perimeter around Doctor Strange and the Imperial commander. Shuri, I need every weapon we have focused on protecting this position." Through the chaos of battle, an unlikely alliance was forming. Wakandan ships flew in formation with TIE fighters, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns. The Benatar worked in tandem with an Imperial Star Destroyer, their combined firepower creating a kill zone that the Nameless struggled to penetrate. Masters of the mystic arts materialized through portals, their spells reinforcing the defensive line. And at the center of it all, two men from different universes stood side by side. Vader raised his hands, calling upon the full depth of the dark side, not to destroy, but to contain. The Force responded, dark energy flowing from him in waves, wrapping around the dimensional rift like chains of shadow. Strange began his spell, the ancient words of the Vishanti rolling from his lips. Golden light erupted from his hands, mystical energy that represented order and structure. It intertwined with Vader's Force manipulation, and for a moment, the two powers clashed violently. "Don't fight it," Strange gasped. "Let our energies coexist." Vader gritted his teeth behind his mask. Every instinct screamed at him to dominate the foreign power, to crush it through sheer will. But he had lived through betrayal and loss, had learned harsh lessons about the price of absolute control. With effort that cost him more than any physical pain, he released his grip on the dark side's urge to dominate. The Force and the mystic arts synchronized. The rift began to compress. The synchronization of powers created something neither universe had witnessed before, a lattice of energy that was simultaneously dark and light, mystical and biological, order and chaos held in perfect tension. Strange felt Vader's consciousness through the connection. A vast darkness shot through with pain so profound it nearly broke his concentration. The man had been burned, broken, rebuilt as a machine, and forced to live with the memory of everything he'd lost. Vader, in turn, sensed Strange's mind, a brilliant intellect that had clawed its way back from failure and arrogance, now tempered by sacrifice and the weight of impossible choices. The sorcerer carried guilt for deaths he couldn't prevent, for a universe that had suffered despite his best efforts. Two broken men holding reality together through sheer will. "The rift is compressing," Wong reported from his position coordinating the defensive line. "But there's a problem. The energy feedback is creating secondary fractures. The dimensional barrier is cracking in other locations." Strange's eyes remained closed, his concentration absolute. "Where?" "Everywhere," Shuri's voice came through, her readings showing catastrophic news. "Coruscant in their galaxy, New York in ours. Wherever the dimensional walls are thinnest, new rifts are forming, smaller but multiplying rapidly." Vader's respirator quickened, the first sign of strain. "The Force cannot reach across all locations simultaneously. We will seal this rift only to watch 100 others tear open. Then we need a different approach." Strange's mind raced through mystical theory, searching for a solution. We're treating the symptom, not the cause. The rift exists because the Infinity Stone's destruction created quantum instability. That instability resonated with your force. We need to neutralize the incompatibility between our universal constants. Speak plainly, sorcerer. How? We need to teach our universes to coexist. Strange opened his eyes, golden light still flowing from his hands. The force binds your reality. The quantum foam, shaped by the Infinity Stone's legacy, structures mine. Right now they're rejecting each other like mismatched organ transplants. We need to create compatibility. T'Challa stepped closer, energy crackling across his suit from accumulated impacts. You're talking about merging fundamental forces. Is that even possible? It has to be, Strange's voice was strained, because the alternative is watching both realities tear themselves apart. But creating compatibility required understanding, and understanding required time. Time they didn't have. The Nameless continued to pour through the rift, their numbers growing exponentially. The defensive perimeter was holding, but barely. TIE fighter pilots screamed final transmissions as they were consumed. Wakandan warriors fought with desperate courage, buying seconds with their lives. Then Nebula's voice cut through the chaos, cold and analytical as always. I have a solution. It's terrible, but it's a solution. Speak, Vader commanded. The Infinity Stones were destroyed, but their energy signature remains in the quantum substrate of our universe. That energy is what's causing the incompatibility with your force. Nebula's hologram materialized, showing complex energy readings. But there's one place where concentrated Infinity Stone energy still exists in stable form. Inside the remains of Vision. Strange's blood ran cold. Vision's body was buried with honors. We can't what? Disturb a corpse to save two universes? Nebula's cybernetic eye glowed with harsh pragmatism. Thanos taught me that sentiment is a luxury we can't afford. Vision's body still contains the Mind Stone's energy signature embedded in his vibranium matrix. If we can extract that signature and use it as a template, we might be able to create a buffer, a translator between your force and our quantum physics. She's right, Shuri said quietly, though her voice carried pain. Vision sacrificed himself to try to stop Thanos. He would understand. He would want his death to mean something. T'Challa closed his eyes briefly, the weight of leadership crushing down on him. How long to retrieve and prepare the body? Too long, Banner's voice interjected. But I have Vision's neural architecture backed up at the Avengers compound. His consciousness might be gone, but the Mind Stone's energy signature is encoded in his quantum blueprint. I can transmit it to Shuri. She can use Wakandan technology to recreate the buffer device. Do it, Strange ordered. Vader, can your fleet hold these creatures for another 10 minutes? Vader surveyed the battlefield through the Force. His fleet was taking losses. Star destroyers bearing scars from nameless attacks. TIE squadrons reduced to half strength. But the Empire's military doctrine was built on acceptable casualties. They would hold. Captain Lennox, deploy reserve fighter squadrons. All Star destroyers are authorized to use concentrated turbo laser bombardment pattern Vader 7. Fire at will. The Imperial response was immediate and overwhelming. Turbo laser batteries synchronized their fire, creating interlocking fields of destruction that vaporized dozens of Nameless simultaneously. It was brutally efficient, and it was buying them time. 4 minutes until I have the buffer specifications, Shuri reported. But there's another problem. The device will need a massive power source to operate, something that can channel both Force energy and Infinity Stone signatures simultaneously. The Death Star, Vader said immediately. Its super laser can be recalibrated to emit a focused beam rather than destructive blast. Combined with the Force abilities of every Force sensitive in range, and the mystical energy of every master of the mystic arts, Strange added, we create a massive resonance wave. Force energy, Infinity Stone signature, and mystical power all channeled through the buffer device. We force compatibility between our universal constants. T'Challa processed the plan's implications. You're talking about fundamentally altering the nature of reality. What are the side effects? Unknown, Strange admitted. Best case, we create a stable bridge between universes. Worst case, we create something entirely new. A merged reality that's neither yours nor ours. Or we all die, Rocket added helpfully. Don't forget that option. Vader's respirator hissed as he calculated odds. The Emperor would never approve such a gamble. Palpatine sought control, not cooperation. But the Emperor was not here, standing at the edge of oblivion with creatures of pure chaos devouring reality around him. Sometimes even servants of darkness had to choose survival over ideology. I will coordinate the Force sensitives, Vader said. Every Inquisitor, every dark side adept in range. They will resist working with your mystics. They'll work or they'll die. Strange's tone brooked no argument. Wong, get every master to focus their energy on my position. This is going to require precision we've never attempted before. 2 minutes, Shuri announced. Fabricating the buffer device now. Brother, I'll need the Benatar to retrieve it and transport it to the rift's epicenter. Oh, sure, why not? Rocket grumbled. We'll just fly through a reality-eating tear in space-time. What's the worst that could happen? But the plan had a fatal flaw, and Nebula identified it with ruthless clarity. The device needs to be at the exact center of the rift to work. That means someone has to hold it there, manually, while channeling the energy. In an environment where reality itself is unstable, whoever does it, she didn't need to finish. They all understood. It was a suicide mission. Silence fell across the command channels. For a moment, the only sounds were weapons fire and the screams of dying men and women from both universes, united in their terror of the nameless. I'll do it, Banner said quietly. The Hulk can survive in environments that would kill anyone else. Maybe he can survive long enough. No, the voice was unexpected. Through Strange's portal stepped a figure in crimson and gold armor, repulsor energy glowing in the chest piece. Tony Stark's hologram, because the real Tony was dead, gone in the snap, flickered, but the backup AI he'd created before his death carried his personality, his voice, his determination. Friday, prepare the final Iron Man armor, the one I built for exactly this kind of scenario. Tony, you're not real anymore, Strange said gently. You're an AI construct. You can't. I'm real enough, the hologram interrupted. And that armor is real, designed to survive absolute zero, cosmic radiation, dimensional shear, everything I could think of after seeing what Thanos could do. It's in the compound's vault. Banner can remote pilot it, or Shuri can upload me into it. Either way, someone with Stark intelligence is going into that rift. You'll die, Wong said flatly. The hologram smiled, that same cocky, fearless grin Tony Stark had worn facing down gods and monsters. Yeah, well, been there, done that, got the posthumous medal. At least this time I get to choose the exit. Vader listened to the exchange with something approaching respect. Sacrifice for the greater good was not a Jedi virtue alone. Darkness could understand duty just as well. Your warrior spirit honors you, even in death, but there may be another option. All eyes turned to the Dark Lord. The Force can sustain life far beyond normal limits. I have survived injuries that would kill any ordinary being because the dark side keeps me alive. Vader's respirator hissed. If I were to enter the rift with this device, my connection to the Force might allow me to survive long enough to stabilize the effect. Or it might kill you instantly, Strange pointed out. The rift is hostile to the Force itself. That's what's causing this entire crisis. Then I will teach it not to be hostile. Vader's tone was absolute. I am Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. I have conquered systems, broken Jedi Masters, and bent the Force itself to my will. I do not die because reality becomes inconvenient. T'Challa studied the dark figure before him. Why? Why would you sacrifice yourself for our universe? You owe us nothing. Vader was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than before, carrying weight that transcended the vocoder's mechanical tone. Because I have failed too many I should have saved. Because the Force showed me visions of both our universes dying while I stood by, doing nothing. Because, he paused, because redemption must be purchased, not given freely. Strange felt the truth behind those words, the crushing guilt, the desperate need for meaning beyond service to an empire of tyranny. Vader was choosing to be something more than the Emperor's weapon, if only for this one moment. "You won't go alone," Strange said firmly. "I'm coming with you. My mystical shields can protect us both while you hold the device. We do this together. Or not at all." "Buffer device fabrication complete," Shuri announced. "Rocket, coordinates transmitted. Retrieve and deliver to the rift's center." "On it," Rocket confirmed. The Benatar already banking hard toward Wakanda. Vader and Strange stood together at the edge of the dimensional void, watching the chaos unfold around them. Two men from different realities, different philosophies, different paths, united by the simple truth that some things were worth dying for. "When this is over," Vader said, "if we survive, our people will demand accounting, treaties, boundaries." "If we survive," Strange replied, "we'll figure it out. Right now, let's focus on not letting two entire universes collapse into nothing." The Benatar emerged from Wakanda, a small metallic sphere clutched in its cargo bay. Inside that sphere was humanity's last hope, a buffer device built from Vision's quantum blueprint, powered by the Mind Stone's lingering signature, capable of teaching two incompatible realities how to coexist. All it needed was someone brave enough or foolish enough to hold it in the heart of the storm. The Benatar's engines screamed as Rocket pushed the ship through dimensional turbulence that would have torn apart any conventional spacecraft. Nebula's hands flew across the weapon's console, blasting nameless creatures that clawed at their hull. Each impact sent shudders through the frame, but the ship held barely. "This is insane," Rocket muttered, though his voice carried a manic edge that suggested he was enjoying himself despite the circumstances. "We're flying into a reality-eating space crack to deliver a magic rock to a space wizard and a cyborg Sith Lord. This is exactly the kind of stupid thing Quill would have done." "Then we honor his memory," Nebula replied coldly, firing another volley. "By not dying like idiots?" Strange and Vader stood ready at the rift's epicenter, suspended in the void between universes. Around them, the combined fleets of two realities created a corridor of fire, holding back the tide of dimensional parasites through sheer volume of destruction. But the nameless kept coming, their numbers endless, drawn by the breakdown of universal law. Through his mystical senses, Strange felt the buffer device approaching. Shuri's work was brilliant. The quantum matrix hummed with the Mind Stone's signature, a frequency that existed between the Force and the mystic arts. If this worked, it would create a resonance pattern that both universes could recognize and accept. If it didn't work, the feedback would likely vaporize everything within a light year. "Death Star arriving at firing position," Captain Lennox reported to Vader. "Super laser recalibrated per your specifications. Ready to fire on your command." Vader felt the massive battle station through the Force, the Emperor's ultimate weapon, now repurposed for salvation rather than destruction. Palpatine would be furious, but that fury seemed distant and unimportant compared to the immediate threat of annihilation. "All Inquisitors and dark side adepts, report status," Vader commanded through the Force-amplified communications network. Across the Imperial fleet, voices responded. The second sister, the fifth brother, the seventh sister, all the Emperor's dark side hunters, along with dozens of lesser Force sensitives who served the Empire. They were scattered across multiple star destroyers, their minds touching Vader's through the dark side. "We feel it, Lord Vader," the second sister reported, her voice tight with strain. "The wrongness in the Force, it's like a wound that won't heal." "Then we will heal it," Vader replied. "Prepare to channel your power through me. All of it. I will be the conduit." On the Marvel side, Wong coordinated the masters of the mystic arts. Portals opened across Earth and beyond, golden light spilling through as sorcerers gathered their strength. From Kamartaj, from the London Sanctum, from the Hong Kong Sanctum, every living master answered the call. "Doctor Strange," Wong's voice carried across mystical channels, "we're ready. But I need you to understand, channeling this much power at once could burn you out. There's a reason we don't attempt rituals of this scale." "Noted," Strange replied, his hands already beginning to glow with golden light. But we're past the point of caution. Either we do this or we lose everything. The Benatar streaked toward them, Rocket performing evasive maneuvers that defied physics. A nameless creature lunged at the ship, its reality-warping touch reaching for the cargo bay. Nebula fired point blank, the quantum missiles detonating so close that the ship's shields flared white-hot. 30 seconds, Rocket shouted. Get ready to catch. Vader extended his hand, calling upon the Force. Invisible telekinetic power reached out, creating a corridor of stability through the chaos. Strange reinforced it with mystical shields, their combined efforts creating a tunnel through which the Benatar could safely pass. The ship shot through and Rocket released the buffer device. The metallic sphere tumbled through the void, caught between gravitational forces that shouldn't exist. Vader's Force grip seized it while Strange's mystical tethers wrapped around it, both men guiding it toward the rift's exact center. Now, Strange said quietly, before we lose our chance. They moved in perfect synchronization, drifting toward the device. The closer they got to the rift's heart, the more reality itself screamed in protest. Strange felt his molecular structure beginning to phase between solid and energy. Vader's cybernetics sparked and failed, forcing him to rely on the Force alone to keep his ravaged body functional. The buffered device pulsed with Mind Stone energy, purple light that remembered what it was to be infinite, to contain consciousness itself. Vader reached out and grasped it with both hands, feeling the alien power surge through his mechanical fingers. Doctor, Vader said, strain evident even through the vocoder, I hope your shields are as strong as you claim. So do I. Strange wrapped both men in layers of mystical protection, golden mandalas forming a cocoon around them. Death Star, you're cleared to fire. All mystical forces, channel on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark! The Death Star's super laser fired, but not the planet-destroying beam of destructive power. Instead, Shuri's recalibrations transformed it into a focused carrier wave. Pure energy without destructive intent, designed to carry and amplify Force energy across vast distances. Every Force sensitive in the Imperial fleet poured their power into Vader. The Second Sister's rage, the Fifth Brother's hunger for strength, the Seventh Sister's cold precision, all the darkness that fueled the Inquisitorius flowed through the connection. It was agony, pure dark side energy channeled through a single vessel, but Vader had been forged in agony. He endured. From Earth's side, the masters of the mystic arts released their power in concert. Wong's disciplined focus, the ancient strength of Kamartaj, the desperate determination of sorcerers who had watched half their world die, all of it flowed through Strange. The Sorcerer Supreme screamed as mystical energy beyond any single human's capacity to channel burned through his nervous system. Both streams of power converged on the buffer device. Vision's quantum blueprint activated, translating between forces that had no common language. The Mind Stone's signature created a bridge, teaching the Force and the Infinity Stone's legacy to recognize each other not as enemies, but as different expressions of the same fundamental truth. Everything is connected. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The rift convulsed, its edges simultaneously expanding and contracting as two universal constants tried to exist in the same space. For a moment, it seemed like the plan had failed, the incompatibility too great, the forces too alien to merge. Then something shifted. T'Challa watched from his fighter, hardly daring to breathe. The rift's chaotic swirling began to slow, finding a rhythm. The purple light of the Mind Stone's signature pulsed like a heartbeat, and with each pulse, the rift stabilized a little more. It's working, Shuri whispered, her instruments showing the dimensional barriers beginning to heal. The buffer is creating a harmonic resonance. The Force and quantum foam they're learning to coexist. But the price was steep. Inside his mystical cocoon, Strange felt his body breaking down under the strain. His hands, already scarred from the accident that had ended his surgical career, were burning from channeling power never meant for mortal flesh. Blood ran from his nose, his ears, his eyes. Vader fared no better. The dark side sustained him, but even that had limits. His cybernetic heart was failing, his respiratory system cycling on emergency backup. Through the Force, he felt his own death approaching, a familiar presence, almost comforting after so many years of pain. Sorcerer, Vader gasped, his voice barely audible. I cannot maintain much longer. Just a little more, Strange managed through gritted teeth. The rift is closing. The universes are stabilizing. We just need a massive, nameless creature, larger than any they'd encountered, erupted from the collapsing rift. It was ancient, primal, a thing that had existed in the spaces between realities since the first universe was born. And it sensed what Strange and Vader were doing, sealing its hunting ground, cutting it off from the feast of crumbling dimensions. It would not allow that. The creature lunged, its reality-warping touch reaching for the buffer device. And if it destroyed the device now, the backlash would kill everyone in the immediate vicinity and rip the rift wide open again. Strange tried to raise shields, but he had nothing left. Vader attempted to use the Force, but his power was entirely committed to channeling the energy through the buffer. They were helpless. Then Tony Stark's final armor arrived. It had been launched from the Avengers compound, piloted remotely by Friday with Tony's AI personality guiding its actions. The suit was a masterpiece, vibranium nanotech composite, powered by an arc reactor that drew energy from the quantum vacuum itself. Tony had designed it for the worst-case scenario, fighting threats that conventional armor couldn't handle. This qualified. The armor positioned itself between the nameless creature and the buffer device. Repulsors fired at maximum output, staggering the creature, but not stopping it. The thing was too massive, too fundamental. It would tear through the armor in seconds. Friday, Tony's AI said calmly, activate self-destruct protocol Stark Omega, full quantum detonation. Sir, Friday replied, her synthetic voice carrying the weight of understanding, that will destroy the armor and all systems, including me. I know. The AI's voice carried something that sounded almost like peace. Been nice existing, Friday. Take care of them. It has been an honor, sir. The armor's arc reactor went critical. But this wasn't a simple explosion. Stark Omega was a quantum collapse bomb, designed to create a localized singularity that would annihilate matter and energy at the fundamental level. Tony Stark's final gift to the universe was the knowledge of how to destroy what couldn't be destroyed. The nameless creature sensed the danger too late. The singularity formed, and for a fraction of a second, a miniature black hole existed in the space between universes. The creature was pulled in, compressed to nothing, erased from reality with absolute finality. Then the singularity collapsed, and the armor was gone. Tony's AI, his last echo, was gone. But the buffer device remained intact, still channeling power, still healing the rift. No, Strange whispered, tears mixing with blood on his face. Tony, not again, not again. But there was no time for grief. The rift was closing rapidly now. The universe is stabilizing. Strange and Vader poured the last of their strength into the device, feeling their consciousness begin to fade. The last thing Strange saw before darkness claimed him was the rift sealing shut, reality healing itself, two universes learning to exist side by side without destroying each other. The last thing Vader felt was something he hadn't experienced in decades, peace. Then both men collapsed, falling through the void, their work complete. The Benatar shot forward on full burn, Rocket's hands flying across the controls with desperate precision. Nebula, get the tractor beam online. We're not losing them after all this. Already on it, Nebula replied, her cybernetic enhancements interfacing directly with the ship's systems. Blue light lanced out from the Benatar, catching Strange's falling form. A second beam reached for Vader, but the Dark Lord was heavier, his trajectory more erratic as his cybernetics failed. I can't hold both, Rocket snarled, the ship shuddering under the strain. The tractor emitters weren't designed for this much mass. A Wakandan Royal Talon fighter swept in alongside them, T'Challa's voice coming through clear and calm. We have Lord Vader. Bring Doctor Strange aboard your vessel. The Talon fighter's more powerful magnetic grapples seized Vader's armored form, pulling him toward their medical bay. Aboard the Benatar, Rocket carefully guided Strange through the airlock, where the atmosphere pressurized with a hiss. Wong was already there, having portaled directly into the ship the moment the rift stabilized. He knelt beside Strange, hands glowing with healing energy. He's alive, barely. The amount of mystical power he channeled should have killed him instantly. Guess he's stubborn, Rocket muttered, but his voice carried respect. So what now? We got two unconscious heroes in a universe that just learned there's another universe sitting right next door. That's going to be a fun conversation. The question hung in the air as ships from both realities hung in space. Weapons powered down, but still tracking each other. The rift was closed, sealed by the buffer device's harmonic resonance. But a permanent scar remained in the dimensional fabric, a bridge point where the barriers between universes were thinner, more permeable. Travel between realities was now possible. The question was, should it be? On Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine sat in his throne room, yellow eyes gleaming with dark calculation as reports flooded in. The Death Star had been used not to destroy, but to heal. Vader had sacrificed himself, possibly died, working alongside alien sorcerers. The Galactic Empire had just discovered another universe, filled with beings who wielded powers outside the Force. Fascinating, Palpatine whispered to himself, and dangerous. So very dangerous. He gestured, and the holographic image of Grand Moff Tarkin appeared. Grand Moff, prepare a full military assessment. I want to know everything about this other universe. Their weapons, their powers, their weaknesses. If they pose a threat to Imperial security, we will neutralize them. If they can be exploited, his grin was predatory. We will exploit them. Yes, my Emperor. Tarkin's hologram flickered. And Lord Vader? If he survives, he will answer for his unauthorized cooperation with these Avengers. Palpatine's voice dripped with venom. If he does not survive, then his weakness has been exposed. Either way, the Empire endures. But Palpatine's plans were already encountering unexpected obstacles. Across the Imperial fleet, Force sensitives who had channeled power through Vader during the crisis were experiencing something unprecedented. Visions of the other universe. The Mind Stone's signature, amplified through the buffer device, had created temporary bridges between minds across dimensional barriers. The second sister gasped aboard her Star Destroyer, her hand pressed against her helmet as alien memories flooded her consciousness. She saw Earth, saw heroes who fought without the Force, saw a green giant who raged against injustice, a man with a shield who stood for ideals the Empire would call treasonous, a genius in armor who sacrificed himself not once but twice to save people he'd never met. She saw alternatives to the Empire's doctrine of power through fear, and she was not alone. Dozens of Inquisitors, Imperial officers with latent Force sensitivity, even some stormtroopers who had touched the Force during the crisis, all of them received glimpses of another way. Seeds of doubt planted in the very machinery of Imperial control. On Earth, the effect was equally profound. The masters of the mystic arts who had channeled power through Strange found themselves with fleeting awareness of the Force. They felt the vast tapestry of connection that bound the Star Wars galaxy together, sensed the potential for both light and darkness that the Force represented. This changes everything, Wong said quietly, still kneeling beside Strange's unconscious form. The barriers between our universes are thinner now, permanently. Magic and the Force can interact. People can cross over, and every faction in both realities will want to exploit that. In the Wakandan Royal Talon fighter, T'Challa stood over Vader's still form. The Dark Lord's armor was scorched and damaged, several cybernetic systems completely dead. Shuri worked frantically with her medical team, analyzing the hybrid of organic tissue and mechanical augmentation. This is incredible, Shuri breathed, her fingers flying across holographic displays. His entire body is more machine than man, but the integration is seamless. Whoever designed this was a genius. Brother, we need to stabilize his respiratory system or he'll suffocate. Do what you must, T'Challa replied. He saved both our universes. We owe him that much. There's something else. Shuri pulled up a neural scan. His brain activity is spiking. He's dreaming or having visions, and the readings show interaction with an external energy source. This Force he wields. It's trying to heal him, but it's fighting against the damage simultaneously. Through the haze of unconsciousness, Vader walked through a landscape of memory and vision. He stood on Mustafar again, burning, screaming, his body consumed by fire. But this time, when he looked up, he didn't see Palpatine's shuttle coming to collect what remained. He saw a golden portal, and through it, a hand extended. Not Palpatine's twisted claw, but a steady hand surrounded by mystical light. "You don't have to burn forever," Strange's voice echoed through the Force vision. "You've been given a choice. Make it count." The vision shifted. Vader saw himself as Anakin Skywalker again, young, whole, powerful, standing at a crossroads. One path led back to the Emperor, to the dark side, to the comfortable chains of servitude he'd worn for decades. The other path led towards something unknown, something that terrified him more than any enemy, the possibility of redemption. In the physical world, Vader's hand twitched. His respirator coughed once, twice, then resumed its rhythmic breathing. His eyes opened behind the mask, focusing slowly on the unfamiliar ceiling of the Wakandan medical bay. "Where?" His voice was weak, the vocoder barely functioning. "Where is the sorcerer?" T'Challa stepped into view. "Doctor Strange lives. Thanks to you both, our universe has survived. I am T'Challa, King of Wakanda. You're aboard one of our medical vessels." Vader tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as damaged servos protested. "I must return to my fleet. The Emperor will require my report." "The Emperor can wait." T'Challa's tone was firm but not hostile. "You nearly died saving our reality. The least we can do is ensure you're stable before sending you back to face whatever punishment your ruler has planned." Vader was silent for a moment. Through the Force, he could sense Palpatine's presence across the dimensional barrier. Cold, calculating, already planning how to exploit this new discovery. And beneath that, Vader felt something else. His master's intention to discipline him harshly for this unauthorized cooperation. "You understand nothing of the Empire," Vader said quietly, "or what it means to serve it. Then help me understand." T'Challa sat in the chair beside the medical bed, an act that shocked Vader, royalty treating him as an equal, not a servant. "You serve an emperor who would execute you for saving billions of lives. Why?" The question hung in the air. Vader's respirator hissed its mechanical rhythm as he struggled with an answer that had once seemed so simple. Order, security, the necessity of control in a chaotic galaxy. But after touching Strange's mind, after seeing glimpses of another universe where heroes fought without the promise of power or dominion, "Because I destroyed everything I ever loved," Vader finally answered, his voice barely above a whisper. "The dark side is all I have left. The Emperor is all I have left. Without that, I am nothing but the monster who burned on Mustafar." T'Challa leaned forward, his eyes intense but compassionate. "You just proved that's not true. You chose to save two realities when you could have let them burn. That's not nothing. That's everything." Before Vader could respond, alarms shrieked throughout both fleets. New contacts were emerging from the dimensional bridge point, not from the Star Wars side or the Marvel side, but from somewhere else entirely. Shuri's voice came through urgent and tight with fear. "Brother, we have a problem. The buffer device created a stable bridge between our universes, but it also created something else. A resonance that's propagating through the multiverse. Other realities are detecting it, and some of them are responding. On the Benatar's sensors, rockets saw them coming. Ships that belong to neither universe. Vessels of impossible geometry that hurt to look at. Energy signatures that predated conventional physics." "Oh, this is bad," Rocket muttered. "This is really, really bad." Wong felt it through his mystical senses, and his blood ran cold. He'd read about this in the ancient texts of Kamartaj, in warnings written by sorcerers who had glimpsed forbidden truths. When two universes learned to coexist, they sent out a signal, a beacon that told the rest of the multiverse. The barriers are falling, and things that live between universes, things that fed on dimensional instability, they heard that signal. They came hungry. Through the Force, Vader sensed them too. Ancient presences that made the nameless seem like mere parasites. These were architects of chaos, beings that existed to unmake reality itself. The Sith called them the architects of oblivion. The masters of the mystic arts knew them as the dweller in darkness and its kin. They had different names, but they were the same threat. entities that sought to drag all realities into the primordial void from which existence had first emerged. We sealed one rift, Strange's weak voice came through the comms, Wong having placed a communication device near him, only to ring the dinner bell for every cosmic horror in the multiverse. Vader, your emperor wanted to know about our universe? Well, now he's going to get a much bigger problem. The approaching vessels opened fire without warning or communication, not conventional weapons, but reality-warping attacks that made space itself scream. An Imperial Star Destroyer simply ceased to exist, erased from reality as if it had never been built. A Wakandan cruiser phased out of dimensional alignment, its crew lost between realities. All ships, evasive maneuvers, T'Challa commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. Concentrate fire on the lead vessels. But conventional weapons were useless. Turbo lasers passed through the approaching ships as if they were ghosts. Vibranium-tipped missiles exploded harmlessly against reality-warping shields. Even force lightning and mystical attacks barely registered. Vader pulled himself to his feet through sheer force of will, his damaged armor sparking. These are beings beyond our understanding. We cannot fight them directly. Then what do we do? T'Challa demanded. Strange's voice came through again, stronger now despite his injuries. We do what we should have done from the beginning. We don't just make our universes compatible with each other, we make them incompatible with these things. We weaponize the bridge point itself. Explain, Vader commanded. The buffer device created a harmonic resonance between our realities. Right now, it's like a tuning fork that's ringing at a frequency these entities can hear and exploit. Strange was speaking faster now, his strategic mind engaged despite his physical weakness. But if we change the frequency, make it specifically attuned only to our two universes, we can create a barrier that excludes everything else. A multiversal firewall, Shuri breathed, already working through the mathematics. We turn the bridge point into a fortress wall, but that would require recalibrating the buffer device while under attack. And someone would need to hold it at the exact dimensional coordinates. I'll do it. Vader's statement was flat, brooking no argument. I survived the first time. I can survive again. No, T'Challa said firmly. You can barely stand. We need another solution. But there was no other solution, and they all knew it. The approaching entities were less than a minute from reaching the assembled fleets. When they did, the slaughter would be absolute. Vader began walking toward the airlock, his damaged cybernetics protesting every step. King of Wakanda, I require transport to the bridge point. Immediately. Wait. Strange's voice carried power despite coming through a comm unit. You don't have to do this alone. I'm coming too. Doctor, you can barely breathe, Wong started. I know. Get me to a portal. Now. Two men, both broken, both barely alive, preparing to face cosmic horrors for the second time in an hour. But this time, they wouldn't be sealing a rift. They'd be building a wall between their realities and the infinite, hungry multiverse beyond. The war for survival was about to enter its second phase. The golden portal materialized in the Wakandan medical bay, Strange stumbling through it with Wong supporting his weight. The Sorcerer Supreme looked like death warmed over, his skin pale, his hands trembling, blood still crusting around his nose and ears. But his eyes burned with determination that transcended physical limits. You're insane, Vader stated, though his tone carried something that might have been respect. You can barely stand. Says the cyborg held together by spite and failing machinery. Strange managed a weak grin. We're a matched pair. Now let's go be heroes one more time before we both collapse. T'Challa stepped between them and the airlock. I cannot allow this. You're both in critical condition. There must be another way. There isn't. Vader's respirator hissed with finality. Every second we debate, those entities draw closer. Your people die. My people die. Action is required, not deliberation. Shuri's voice cut through the tension, broadcasting to all ships. I've completed the recalibration protocols for the buffer device, but the process requires constant manual adjustment. The dimensional frequencies are shifting too rapidly for automated systems. Whoever does this will need to respond in real time to quantum fluctuations. Then we need someone with enhanced perception. Strange created a small mystical construct, demonstrating despite his exhaustion. My astral projection can perceive dimensional shifts before they occur, and Vader's connection to the Force gives him precognitive abilities. Together, we can maintain the calibration. Through the viewport, the cosmic horrors were now visible to the naked eye. They didn't move through space so much as reality bent around them, dimensions folding to accommodate their passage. Where they traveled, stars flickered and died, matter reverting to primal chaos. The lead entity, something the ancient texts called a primordial unmaker, extended tendrils of unreality toward the nearest star destroyer. The great warship's hull didn't explode or burn. It simply stopped being, sections of the vessel erasing from existence as the crew's screams cut off mid-transmission. "That's our deadline," Rocket announced grimly from the Benatar. "We either do this now, or we start running and hope we can outpace things that literally eat space-time." T'Challa looked at Vader, then at Strange, seeing the resolution in both men. Sometimes leadership meant accepting terrible choices. "Go, but you're not going alone. Shuri, deploy the Royal Escort. Keep them alive long enough to complete the recalibration." "Already moving, brother." The Wakandan fleet shifted into defensive formation, creating a corridor of protection leading to the dimensional bridge point. Wong opened a portal directly to the bridge point's coordinates, bypassing the need for ships. Strange stepped through without hesitation, and Vader followed, his damaged armor leaving a trail of sparks. They emerged into the dimensional void where they'd nearly died less than an hour before. The buffer device still hung there, pulsing with Mind Stone energy, but now it was surrounded by a sphere of protective shields, Wakandan energy barriers interwoven with Imperial force field technology. A hasty collaboration between two universes' best engineers, creating something neither could have built alone. The recalibration requires physical contact with the device. Shuri's voice came through their comms. "I'm transmitting the frequency modulation patterns now. You'll need to adjust the harmonic resonance in real time as I call out the values." Strange extended his hands, golden energy connecting to the buffer device. Vader placed his mechanical palms against the sphere's surface, feeling the vibrations of quantum reality beneath his fingertips. Through the Force, he could sense the dimensional structure, a vast web of interconnected realities, all humming with their own unique frequencies. "Beginning recalibration," Shuri announced. "First adjustment, decrease quantum resonance by 0.03% on the Force spectrum axis." Vader closed his eyes behind his mask, reaching deep into the dark side. Not for destruction this time, but for precision. He felt the Force flowing through the buffer device and made the subtlest adjustment, dampening the resonance exactly as specified. "Confirmed," Strange said, monitoring the change through his mystical perception. "Next adjustment. Increase mystical energy, harmonic by 0.07% on the Infinity Stone axis." Strange poured a trickle of golden energy into the device, feeling it resonate with Vision's quantum blueprint. The Mind Stone's signature responded, the frequency shifting upward. But maintaining the adjustments required constant concentration, and the primordial unmakers were not patient. The nearest entity lashed out with a tendril of anti-reality, striking at the protective sphere. The shields held, but barely. Cracks spider-webbed across the Wakandan energy barriers. "Shields at 60%, T'Challa reported from his fighter. "We need more time." "Then buy it," Vader commanded, his voice strained from maintaining Force precision. "All Imperial vessels, concentrate fire on the lead entity. I don't care if conventional weapons seem ineffective. Overwhelm it with volume." The response was immediate. Every Star Destroyer in range opened fire simultaneously. Thousands of turbolaser bolts converging on the primordial unmaker. The entity absorbed the energy, growing slightly brighter, but it also slowed, distracted by the sheer volume of attention. From the Marvel side, the Benatar led a coordinated strike. Rocket had linked their targeting computers with Wakandan ships and remaining shield vessels, creating a precision bombardment pattern. Quantum missiles, sonic cannons, and experimental weapons salvaged from a dozen alien species all fired in concert. "It's not killing them," Nebula observed coldly, "but it's annoying them. Keep firing." Inside the protective sphere, Strange and Vader worked in silence, their concentration absolute. Shuri called out adjustments faster now. the dimensional frequency shifting more rapidly as the primordial Unmaker's presence destabilized local reality. Decrease force harmonic, increase mystical resonance, shift Infinity Stone's signature left by 2 degrees. Shuri's instructions came rapid fire, and both men responded with precision that defied their injuries. But the strain was mounting. Strange felt his consciousness beginning to fragment, pulled between the physical world and the astral plane. His hands shook, golden energy flickering. Blood began to flow from his nose again. Vader fared no better. His cybernetic heart was operating on emergency power, his respiratory system cycling at dangerously slow rates. Through the dark side, he felt his life force ebbing, the force connection growing weaker. "We're losing them," Wong reported, his mystical senses tracking both men's vital signs. "Their bodies can't sustain this level of power output." "They must," T'Challa replied grimly, his fighter weaving through reality-warping attacks. "We're 90% complete with the recalibration. If they stop now, everything resets." Another primordial Unmaker arrived. Then another. They were drawn by the buffer device's energy signature like sharks to blood and water. Their combined presence was beginning to fray the dimensional fabric itself. Through the cracks, glimpses of other realities flickered. Universes where Earth had been consumed by darkness, where the Galactic Empire had never fallen, where Thanos had succeeded in destroying all life rather than just half. "Final adjustment sequence," Shuri announced, her voice tight with tension. "This is the critical moment. The frequency needs to shift across 7 different axes simultaneously. If any single adjustment is off by more than 0.01%, the entire recalibration fails." Strange and Vader looked at each other through the sphere's interior. No words passed between them. But they didn't need words. They'd touched minds during their first collaboration. Each understood what the other was thinking. They had one chance at this, and failure meant the extinction of both their universes. "On my mark," Shuri said. 3, 2, 1, mark! Strange and Vader moved as one, their powers flowing through the buffer device in perfect harmony. The Force and the mystic arts, dark side and golden light, Imperial precision and human determination, all of it synchronized into a single moment of perfect execution. The buffer device blazed with light that hurt to perceive, the Mind Stone's signature amplified, resonating across dimensional boundaries. And for a fraction of a second, every being in both universes felt it, a pulse of pure intention that said, "This is ours. You are not welcome here." The dimensional bridge point transformed. What had been a simple connection between 2 realities became something far more sophisticated, a fortress wall in the fabric of existence itself. The frequency locked onto the specific quantum signatures of the Star Wars galaxy and the Marvel Universe, creating a resonance pattern that existed nowhere else in the multiverse. The primordial Unmakers struck the new barrier and recoiled as if burned. Their tendrils of unreality slid off the dimensional wall, unable to find purchase. The frequency was wrong for them, incompatible with their existence. They couldn't enter. The wall held. For a moment, there was stunned silence across both fleets. Then T'Challa's voice cut through. "It's working. The entities are retreating." "Confirm that," Rocket added, his sensors tracking the cosmic horrors as they withdrew. "The big, ugly reality eaters are pulling back. Whatever you did, it's keeping them out." But the victory came with a price. Inside the protective sphere, both Strange and Vader collapsed simultaneously, their bodies finally surrendering to the accumulated damage. The buffer device continued to pulse on its own now, self-sustaining, no longer requiring manual adjustment. Wong portaled in immediately, catching Strange before he could drift into the void. "I've got him! Someone get Vader!" A squad of Imperial stormtroopers jetpacked into the sphere, magnetic boots locking onto Vader's armor. They pulled the Dark Lord back toward their Star Destroyer, his respirator cycling erratically. On the Benatar, Rocket watched the rescue operations unfold. "So we've got a dimensional fortress wall that keeps out universe-eating monsters. That's good, but we've also got a permanent bridge between our universe and theirs. That's complicated." "Complicated doesn't begin to cover it," Nebula replied. "2 universes that can now interact freely. That means trade, diplomacy, cultural exchange, and conquest exploitation. War, Rocket finished. Yeah, we just made things real interesting for everyone. Across the dimensional bridge, Emperor Palpatine had reached the same conclusion. He stood aboard the Death Star, studying the new permanent bridge point with yellow eyes that gleamed with dark ambition. The Galactic Empire had just gained access to an entirely new universe, one filled with exploitable resources, conquerable populations, and most intriguingly, new forms of power. Prepare a full expeditionary force, Palpatine commanded. I want detailed reconnaissance of this Marvel universe. Every planet, every power source, every potential threat or asset, and find out what other artifacts of power they possess. If these Infinity Stones could grant such abilities, imagine what the Empire could achieve with such tools. And Lord Vader, my Emperor? Grand Moff Tarkin asked. Palpatine's expression darkened. Lord Vader has proven unreliable. His cooperation with these aliens suggests a weakness I cannot tolerate. When he recovers, he will be summoned to Coruscant. His loyalty must be tested. But Vader was beyond hearing such threats. Aboard the Imperial medical frigate, he lay unconscious, surrounded by medical droids working frantically to repair his damaged cybernetics. And in his unconscious state, the Force carried him into another vision. He stood again at the crossroads, but this time he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Strange, equally battered, equally exhausted. We built something today, Strange said in the vision. A wall between our universes and the chaos beyond. But walls work both ways. They keep things out, and they keep things in. What is your point, sorcerer? Vader's voice was tired, lacking its usual menace. My point is that we have a choice now. Our universes are connected. We can use that connection to help each other, to share knowledge and strength, or we can use it to conquer and destroy. Strange met Vader's masked gaze. You've spent years serving an emperor who demands absolute control, but today you chose differently. You chose to save rather than destroy. That matters. One choice does not erase a lifetime of darkness. No, Strange agreed, but it's a start, and sometimes a start is all you need. The vision faded, leaving Vader alone in the darkness of unconsciousness. But Strange's words echoed in his mind, mixing with older memories, voices he'd tried to forget. Padme's voice pleading with him to stop. Obi-Wan's voice mourning what he'd become. And deeper still, buried beneath decades of dark side corruption, a whisper of the man he'd once been. Anakin Skywalker, asking a question he'd long since stopped asking. Is this who I want to be? For the first time in years, Vader didn't have an immediate answer. 3 days after the dimensional crisis, the political landscape of both universes had transformed into something unprecedented. The dimensional bridge point, now designated as the Nexus by Marvel scientists and the Threshold by Imperial bureaucrats, had become the most contested piece of space in existence. On the Marvel side, an emergency summit convened in the Wakandan capital. T'Challa sat at the head of a table surrounded by Earth's remaining leaders. President Ellis via hologram, UN Secretary-General Akachi, and representatives from every major nation that had survived the snap. Bruce Banner attended as the Avengers' scientific representative, while Wong spoke for the masters of the mystic arts. The situation is simple, President Ellis began, his face grim. We have a permanent gateway to another universe controlled by a totalitarian empire with planet-destroying weapons. They could invade at any moment. They could, T'Challa agreed, but they haven't. That suggests they're as uncertain about us as we are about them. We have an opportunity for diplomacy before circumstances force us into conflict. Diplomacy with an empire that enslaves entire star systems? Secretary-General Akachi's voice was sharp. We've seen their broadcasts, analyzed their military doctrine. They're expansionist, authoritarian, and have no concept of individual rights. What exactly would we negotiate? Terms of coexistence, Banner suggested, pulling up holographic displays. Look, I've been analyzing the data from the crisis. Both our universes are now permanently connected at a quantum level. The buffer device didn't just create a bridge, it fundamentally altered the dimensional structure. We can't undo this, so we either learn to coexist peacefully or we're looking at an interdimensional war that could destroy both realities. Wong leaned forward, his expression troubled. There's another factor to consider. The Masters have been studying the Nexus. It's stable now, but it's also permeable. Not just for ships and people, but for concepts, ideas. The Force is beginning to manifest in our universe in microscopic ways, and our quantum physics are influencing their reality. Over time, the two universes will become more similar, more compatible. That could be catastrophic, one of the UN representatives said. Our entire physical laws could change, or it could save us, T'Challa interrupted. Half our population is gone. Our world is vulnerable. But this connection gives us access to technologies, resources, and yes, powers that could help us rebuild. The question isn't whether we should interact with the Galactic Empire. That ship has sailed. The question is how we interact with them. On the other side of the Nexus, similar debates raged across Imperial command structures. Aboard the Death Star, Emperor Palpatine convened his inner circle. Grand Moff Tarkin, Director Krennic, several high-ranking admirals, and notably absent, Lord Vader, who remained in medical recovery. The Marvel Universe presents both opportunity and threat, Palpatine said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Their technology is primitive in many ways, yet they possess power sources we've never encountered. These Infinity Stones, capable of eliminating half of all life across an entire universe. Imagine such power in Imperial hands. The stones were destroyed, my Emperor, Tarkin pointed out. Their user sacrificed himself to prevent their misuse. Destroyed in their universe, Palpatine corrected, his yellow eyes gleaming. But the principles behind their creation surely remain. If we can discover how they were made, we could forge our own. 6 stones that control fundamental aspects of reality. Space, time, mind, soul, power, and reality itself. Combined with the Force, he trailed off, but his meaning was clear. Director Krennic pulled up holographic analyses. Our reconnaissance has identified several potential assets. The nation called Wakanda possesses a metal called vibranium, nearly indestructible, energy absorbent, and apparently rare in their universe. A single Star Destroyer plated in vibranium would be nearly invincible. And there are other resources. Their arc reactor technology, PIM particles that manipulate size and mass, Asgardian artifacts. Asgardians! Palpatine leaned forward with interest. A powerful alien civilization in their universe. According to intercepted communications, they were nearly wiped out recently by this Thanos figure. But survivors remain. They possess technology that appears magical even by their standards. Krennic highlighted images of Thor from intercepted surveillance. This individual channeled lightning powerful enough to destroy capital ships. Without any visible technology, the power appeared to be biological. Palpatine's mind raced with possibilities. Beings who wielded cosmic power naturally, technology that defied physics, artifacts that manipulated reality. All of it there for the taking, in a universe still reeling from catastrophic loss. The Empire could expand into virgin territory, exploiting resources and populations that had no concept of Imperial might. But there was risk. He'd reviewed the recordings of Strange's combat capabilities, analyzed the Wakandan battle tactics, studied reports of this Hulk creature that possessed strength rivaling a rancor. The Marvel Universe was not defenseless, merely vulnerable. We will proceed with cautious expansion, Palpatine decided. Establish a permanent Imperial garrison at the threshold. Open diplomatic channels. I want to understand their political divisions. Where there are divisions, there are opportunities for manipulation. And most importantly, his voice dropped to a menacing whisper. Find out what happened to these Infinity Stones. If even fragments remain, I want them. While politicians and emperors plotted, the two men who had saved both universes faced their own reckonings. In a private medical bay aboard a Wakandan vessel stationed near the Nexus, Strange sat across from Vader. Both men were still recovering, Strange's hands wrapped in regenerative bandages, Vader's armor showing fresh repairs, but his breathing still labored. Your Emperor is displeased with you, Strange said quietly. It wasn't a question. The Emperor's displeasure is irrelevant, Vader replied, though his tone suggested otherwise. What matters is that both our realities survived. Is that really what matters to you? Or are you starting to question whether the empire you serve is worth dying for? Strange leaned forward, his scarred surgeon's hands clasped together. I sensed your thoughts during our connection, the guilt you carry, the losses you've suffered. You're not just the Dark Lord of the Sith. You're a man trapped inside that armor, wondering if redemption is even possible. Vader's respirator hissed in the silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Redemption requires something worth redeeming. I am a monster sorcerer. I have killed innocents, destroyed worlds, served evil without question. There is no path back from such darkness. Tony Stark thought the same thing, Strange replied. He built weapons that killed millions, created technology that empowered tyrants, spent years as a merchant of death. But in the end, he gave his life, twice, to save universes he'd never see. If he could find redemption, why can't you? Because he chose to change. Vader trailed off, and for the first time, Strange heard genuine uncertainty in the Dark Lord's voice. I don't know if I can. Before Strange could respond, alarm shrieked throughout the vessel. T'Challa's voice came through the comms, urgent and commanding. All hands to battle stations. We have unauthorized vessels approaching the Nexus. Multiple contacts from both universes. Strange and Vader moved to the observation deck, looking out at the chaos unfolding. From the Marvel side, a massive fleet was emerging, but not Earth vessels. These were ships Strange recognized with growing horror. Kree warships, sovereign dreadnoughts, even Chitauri remnants. The cosmic criminal element in hostile alien empires, drawn by news of the dimensional bridge. They want access to your universe, Vader said, reading the tactical situation immediately. New territory to conquer. Resources to exploit. And from your side? Strange pointed at the Imperial formations that were also converging on the Nexus. But these weren't regular Star Destroyers. These were specialized ships, intelligence vessels, research cruisers, and most concerning, prison barges. The Emperor is moving to secure the Nexus, Vader observed. Those are occupation forces. He intends to establish absolute control over the dimensional bridge. Both men understood the implications immediately. The Nexus was about to become a war zone, with multiple factions from both universes competing for control of the only gateway between realities. Earth couldn't hold it alone. They lacked the military strength. The Empire could take it by force, but that would spark a war with every faction in the Marvel Universe. We need a third option, Strange said urgently. Some way to keep the Nexus neutral, accessible to both universes, but controlled by neither. Neutral territory is a fantasy, Vader countered. Power abhors a vacuum. Someone will control the Nexus. The only question is who? Then maybe it should be controlled by the people who saved it. T'Challa's voice came from behind them as the Wakandan king entered the observation deck. Doctor Strange, Lord Vader, you two created the dimensional bridge. You stabilized it. You built the wall that keeps cosmic horrors from devouring us all. Perhaps you should be the ones who decide its fate. I serve the Emperor, Vader said automatically, but his tone lacked conviction. Do you? T'Challa challenged. Or do you serve the Force? Because from where I stand, you chose to save two universes against your Emperor's wishes. That's not the action of a loyal servant. That's the action of someone who sees a bigger picture. Strange saw where T'Challa was going. You're proposing a joint authority, representatives from both universes operating independently of their respective governments, responsible for maintaining the Nexus and mediating conflicts. A council, T'Challa confirmed, with members who have proven they can work together despite coming from different realities. You two, myself, perhaps others, Banner for his scientific expertise, Wong for mystical knowledge, some Imperial representative who can be trusted. The second sister, Vader said suddenly, the Inquisitor who channeled power through me during the crisis. She experienced visions of your universe. She has questions about Imperial doctrine. She could serve. That's 4, Strange calculated. We'd need at least one more to prevent deadlocks. Someone from the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe, familiar with interstellar politics. Rocket, T'Challa suggested. He's seen enough of the galaxy to understand the stakes, and he's not beholden to any government. A talking raccoon? Vader's skepticism was evident even through the vocoder. A brilliant engineer and tactician who survived encounters with planet-killing tyrants. Strange corrected. Don't underestimate him. Before they could continue planning, the situation at the Nexus exploded into violence. A Kree warship opened fire on an Imperial Star Destroyer, apparently deciding that claiming the Nexus by force was preferable to negotiation. The Star Destroyer returned fire with devastating efficiency, turbo lasers vaporizing the Kree vessel in seconds. That single exchange shattered whatever restraint had existed. Within moments, dozens of ships from multiple factions were firing on each other. Sovereign dreadnoughts targeted Wakandan cruisers. Chitauri scavengers attacked anyone in range. Imperial forces systematically eliminated threats with cold precision. And through it all, the Nexus pulsed with unstable energy. The dimensional bridge straining under the stress of so much violence occurring in its immediate vicinity. If the Nexus destabilizes, Wong's voice came through urgently, we're back to square one. The dimensional barriers will collapse, the primordial unmakers will return, and both universes die. Strange made a decision. Vader, can you reach the Nexus? My shuttle is standing by. Why? Because we're going to end this fight before it destroys everything. Strange's hands began to glow with golden light despite his exhaustion. We're going to remind every faction out there that the Nexus belongs to no one, and that anyone who threatens it answers to us. Vader's respirator hissed what might have been a laugh. You propose we challenge entire fleets with 2 half-dead mystics? 3, T'Challa corrected, his Black Panther suit materializing around him. I'm coming with you. 4, Wong added, stepping through a portal. Someone needs to keep you all alive. Vader looked at these warriors from another universe. These heroes who had somehow become something like allies. In another life, he would have killed them all without hesitation. But that life seemed distant now, separated not just by time, but by the fundamental choice he'd made during the crisis, to save rather than destroy. Very well, Vader said, turning toward his shuttle. Let us teach this rabble the cost of disrupting the peace we died to create. As Vader's shuttle launched with Strange, T'Challa, and Wong aboard, every faction in the growing battle received a transmission. Strange's voice, amplified by mystical energy, carried across every communication channel simultaneously. All vessels, this is Dr. Stephen Strange, Sorcerer Supreme of Earth. You are violating the sanctity of the dimensional nexus. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately, or face the consequences. The response was predictable. Laughter from some factions, ignored by others, outright hostility from most. A Kree commander sent a reply dripping with contempt. The Kree Empire does not take orders from primitive humans. We claim this gateway by right of superior force. You were warned, Vader's voice added, cold and absolute. Captain Lennox, you may fire when ready. The Death Star's super laser, which had been holding position at a distance, fired a single concentrated beam. Not at the Kree fleet, but at a precisely calculated point in empty space between the warring factions. The beam intersected with Strange's mystical energy and Wakandan sonic technology that T'Challa had deployed, creating a shockwave that disabled every weapon system within a 1,000-kilometer radius. Ships went dark. Targeting computers failed. Energy weapons powered down. In an instant, the battlefield became a graveyard of drifting hulks, their crews alive but completely helpless. The Nexus is under the protection of a joint council representing both universes, Strange's voice continued. Any faction, Kree, Sovereign, Imperial, or otherwise, that attempts to claim it by force will be dealt with accordingly. This is your only warning. You cannot enforce such a decree, a sovereign high priestess transmitted. You are individuals, not governments. You have no authority. We have the authority of those who built this bridge and the power to destroy anyone who threatens it, Vader interrupted. Test us if you wish. The Death Star has sufficient firepower to vaporize every ship in this sector. It was a bluff, partially. The Death Star could indeed destroy them all, but doing so would risk destabilizing the Nexus. But the watching factions didn't know that. They saw the disabled weapons, saw the coordinated display of power from beings who had somehow mastered both universes' technologies, and they calculated odds. One by one, the fleets began to withdraw, not happily but pragmatically. The Nexus Council, as it was already being called, had made its point, but as order was restored, Strange knew this was only the beginning. They'd won this battle through intimidation and surprise. Next time, their enemies would be prepared. Next time, the stakes would be higher. And somewhere in both universes, forces were already moving. Forces that saw the Nexus not as a bridge between realities, but as a weapon to be wielded. Forces that would test the fragile peace to its breaking point. The war for the multiverse was just beginning. 6 months after the creation of the Nexus Council, the dimensional bridge point had transformed into something unprecedented in either universe, a true neutral zone. The Council's headquarters, a massive space station constructed jointly by Wakandan engineers, Imperial technicians, and mystical architecture from the masters of the mystic arts, floated at the exact center of the bridge point, equidistant from both realities. The station itself was a marvel of collaborative engineering. Vibranium-reinforced hull plating provided unparalleled defense. Imperial deflector shield technology, enhanced with Wakandan energy distribution systems, made it nearly invulnerable. And woven throughout the entire structure were mystical wards created by Wong and his masters, designed to repel both physical and dimensional attacks. Inside the council chamber, the 5 founding members gathered for what had become a weekly ritual, adjudicating disputes, authorizing crossings, and maintaining the delicate balance between 2 universes that still didn't fully trust each other. Doctor Strange sat in robes that bore symbols from both universes, the Eye of Agamotto on his chest, but with subtle Imperial geometric patterns woven into the fabric at T'Challa's suggestion, a gesture of unity. His hands, though permanently scarred, had regained enough function through Wakandan medical technology and force healing techniques that Vader had reluctantly shared. Darth Vader occupied a seat custom-built to accommodate his armor and life support systems, but he'd made one significant change. At Strange's subtle encouragement and his own growing uncertainty about his path, he'd added a small modification to his chest plate, a symbol representing both the dark side and a neutral star, a reminder that he served the Council now, not just the Emperor. Palpatine had been displeased, but Vader had survived the Emperor's disciplinary measures and emerged more resolved than ever that the Nexus required protection from all governments, including his own. T'Challa represented Earth's interests, though he'd made clear he spoke for Wakanda first, humanity second, and specific governments only when their interests aligned with peace. His diplomatic skills had proven invaluable in navigating the complex politics of 2 realities. The second sister, who had finally revealed her birth name, Trilla Suduri, to the Council in a gesture of trust, sat stiffly in her Inquisitor armor. The visions she'd experienced during the crisis had shaken her faith in the Empire, but breaking a lifetime of indoctrination was a slow process. Still, she'd proven herself ruthlessly fair in adjudicating disputes, treating Imperial and Marvel petitioners with equal scrutiny. And Rocket, looking perpetually annoyed to be stuck in what he called space bureaucracy hell, nevertheless brought a cynical practicality that kept the Council grounded. His engineering expertise had been crucial in maintaining the Nexus's stability, and his complete lack of respect for authority meant he called out everyone's nonsense equally. "Next case," Rocket announced, pulling up a holographic docket. "We've got a request from the Stark Industries Remnant Division. They want permission to establish a trade agreement with an Imperial tech consortium. Specifically, they want to exchange arc reactor technology for Imperial hyperdrive specifications." Strange leaned forward, studying the proposal. "This sets a dangerous precedent. We're talking about sharing foundational technologies between universes." "Dangerous, but inevitable," T'Challa countered. "People from both realities want to trade, to share knowledge. We can't stop that indefinitely. The question is whether we regulate it or let it happen in black markets beyond our control." The Empire would gain access to arc reactor technology, Trilla said, her voice flat. The Emperor would weaponize it within months. We'd see arc reactor-powered star destroyers, personal armor with repulsor technology for stormtroopers. It would shift the military balance dramatically. And Earth would gain hyperdrive technology, Vader added, allowing them to expand beyond their solar system, access resources throughout their galaxy. It would end their isolation and vulnerability. He paused, his respirator hissing. I see no reason to deny this exchange. Both sides gain strength. That creates deterrence, which creates stability. Rocket snorted. Yeah, or it creates an arms race that ends with both universes blowing each other to hell. I've seen this story before. It never ends well. The debate continued for another hour, touching on economic implications, security concerns, and the fundamental question of how much interaction between universes was healthy. Finally, they voted. Strange and Rocket opposed, Vader and T'Challa in favor, with Trilla casting the deciding vote. Approved with conditions, Trilla announced. The technology exchange will be monitored by Council representatives. Any weaponization beyond defensive applications will result in immediate sanctions, and both parties must agree to share the resulting innovations with the Council for evaluation. It was a compromise that satisfied no one completely, which meant it was probably the right decision. As the session concluded and the other members departed, Strange lingered. Vader noticed and remained as well, dismissing his stormtrooper escort with a gesture. You have something on your mind, sorcerer, Vader observed. I've been studying the Force, Strange admitted. Through our connection during the crisis, I felt it, understood it, at least partially. It's not so different from the mystical energies I manipulate. Different source, different philosophy, but similar principles. The Force is unique, Vader said, but his tone was more curious than defensive. It cannot be replicated through your magic. Maybe not replicated, but understood, respected. Strange created a small mystical construct, golden energy swirling in his palm. What if I told you I've figured out how to create a hybrid? A way to channel both the mystic arts and the Force simultaneously. It shouldn't be possible. They're from different universal constants. But the Nexus has made the impossible routine. Vader was silent for a long moment. Show me. Strange extended his hand, and Vader grasped it with his mechanical fingers. Golden mystical energy flowed from Strange into Vader, and simultaneously the Dark Lord allowed a trickle of Force power to flow back. The energies met, clashed briefly. Then, guided by the Mind Stone's lingering influence in the Nexus itself, synchronized. For a moment, both men experienced something profound. Strange felt the vast web of the Force connecting all living things across the Star Wars galaxy. Vader felt the ordered, structured power of the mystic arts, drawing energy from mystical dimensions beyond physical reality. Then Strange pushed further, and Vader sensed something that shook him to his core. Light side energy, untainted by the dark side's corruption, flowing naturally from the Sorcerer Supreme. Not judgment, not rejection of darkness, but simply light, pure and uncomplicated. You could learn this, Strange said quietly, not to replace the dark side, but to balance it. The Force has two aspects for a reason. You've spent decades drowning in darkness, but you don't have to. Vader pulled his hand away as if burned. You presume too much, sorcerer. I am what I am. The dark side is my nature now. Is it, or is it just the only path you've allowed yourself? Strange's gaze was steady, compassionate, without pity. You saved 2 universes, Vader. You've spent 6 months serving on this council, making decisions based on justice rather than power. You're already walking a different path. The question is whether you're brave enough to acknowledge it. Before Vader could respond, alarms shrieked throughout the station. Both men rushed to the observation deck, where they found T'Challa and Rocket already analyzing sensor data. We've got a problem, Rocket announced grimly. A big one. Something's approaching the Nexus from outside both our universes. And it's broadcasting a signal. What kind of signal? Strange demanded. A challenge. T'Challa pulled up the transmission, and a voice none of them recognized filled the chamber. It spoke in a language that existed in neither universe, yet somehow they all understood it. as if the meaning was being transmitted directly into their minds. "Guardians of the bridge," the voice said, neutral and ancient. "You have created a passage between realities and established yourself as its protectors. We are the Concordat, arbiters of multiversal law. Your actions have drawn the attention of powers far beyond your comprehension. A trial will now commence. Prove yourselves worthy of the authority you have claimed, or the bridge will be sealed and both your universes quarantined from the greater multiverse. You have 48 hours to prepare." The transmission ended, leaving stunned silence in its wake. "Multiversal law?" Rocket repeated slowly. "There's multiversal law? Since when?" "Since long before either of our realities existed, apparently," Strange said, his mind racing through ancient texts he'd studied at Camartage. "The Concordat. I've seen references to them in the most forbidden archives. They're supposed to be myth, entities that exist outside normal reality, maintaining order across the infinite multiverse. And they're coming to judge us," T'Challa said quietly, "to decide if we deserve to keep the Nexus open." Vader's respirator hissed in the silence. "Then we must prepare to defend our claim. If this Concordat wishes to seal the bridge, they will have to go through us. You're talking about fighting beings that police the entire multiverse?" Rocket shook his head. "That's suicide." "Perhaps." Vader turned to face them all, and Strange saw something in the Dark Lord's posture. Determination, yes, but also something more. Purpose. "But we did not survive dimensional collapse and cosmic horrors only to surrender to distant judges who know nothing of what we've built here. The Nexus represents hope for both our realities. That is worth defending." "Agreed," T'Challa said firmly. "Wakanda does not bow to threats, even from entities beyond our understanding." Strange felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. 6 months ago, he and Vader had been enemies, meeting across a dimensional void. Now they stood together, preparing to face a threat from outside reality itself. The Nexus had changed them all. "Then we prepare," Strange announced. "Get word to both universes. Everyone with power, knowledge, or resources that could help. We have 48 hours to assemble a defense, and we're going to need everyone." "Including the Emperor?" Vader asked quietly. "Including everyone," Strange confirmed. "Even those we don't trust. Because whatever's coming, we'll need everything both our universes can muster." As the council members dispersed to begin preparations, Strange caught Vader's arm. "What you said earlier, about defending hope, that's not the dark side talking. That's something else. Something better." Vader was silent for a moment. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I have simply found a new form of darkness, one that fights for preservation rather than destruction. Does the distinction matter?" "It matters," Strange said softly, "because preservation is the first step toward redemption. And whether you admit it or not, you're walking that path now." Vader pulled away without responding, but Strange saw the way the Dark Lord's mechanical hand trembled slightly. Seeds of doubt, planted and growing. Not enough to save him yet, but enough to make him question. And in questioning, there was hope. Across both universes, the call went out. The Concordat was coming, and with them, a judgment that would determine the fate of two realities. Heroes and villains, empires and rebels, everyone who had a stake in the Nexus's survival began to mobilize. On Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine received the news with a calculating expression. The Nexus threatened Imperial control, but its destruction would eliminate access to the Marvel Universe's resources. A dilemma, but perhaps an opportunity as well, if the Empire could demonstrate strength to these concordant beings. Prove itself the dominant force. In the Wakandan palace, Shuri worked frantically on new defensive technologies, combining vibranium, force crystals that Vader had reluctantly provided, and mystical enhancements from Wong. Hybrid weapons for a hybrid war. In the scattered remains of the Avengers compound, Bruce Banner analyzed everything they knew about multiversal physics, searching for any advantage against entities that existed beyond conventional reality. And at the Nexus itself, Strange and Vader stood together on the observation deck, watching ships from both universes converge. An unprecedented fleet, Imperial Star Destroyers flying alongside Wakandan cruisers, the Benatar in formation with TIE fighters, masters of the mystic arts coordinating with Force-sensitive Inquisitors. Whatever happens, Strange said quietly, we built something impossible here. Two universes learning to coexist. That's worth celebrating, even if it all ends tomorrow. Vader's respirator hissed its rhythmic breathing. It will not end tomorrow. I have not come this far, survived this much, to surrender to cosmic bureaucrats. He turned to Strange, and though his mask showed no expression, his voice carried fierce determination. We will prove ourselves worthy, or we will make them regret testing us. Strange smiled slightly. 6 months ago, that would have sounded like a villain's speech. Now it just sounds like a man defending his home. Perhaps, Vader allowed, or perhaps the distinction between hero and villain is more complex than either of our universes believed. As the 48-hour countdown began, two men from different realities, a sorcerer who had learned humility through failure, and a Dark Lord who had found purpose in preservation, prepared to face their greatest challenge yet. Not a battle for survival, but a trial to prove that the bridge between universes they'd created deserved to exist. The collision of Star Wars and the Marvel Multiverse had saved two realities from destruction. Now it faced judgment from powers beyond either universe's comprehension. And whatever the Concordat brought, the defenders of the Nexus would face it together.